Camera's on.
There's some special signing for when you speak in the public space, is this it?
You're here every time. I don't know if you need to do it, but
They know.
Is this the speaker's signature?
No, you don't have to.
you can sign it and then they'll
You just sign
ask
it
if I
and
want
you
to
speak.
speak.
You left, you just lift your hand. Yeah, no. Did you sign it?
Not yet.
Okay. So, the question is on the agenda. Non-agenda.
I couldn't even listen to
Right.
America. You ready?
Yeah, Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Stabb and is the chief in here? Is Chief Hockman in here? They're coming.
I hear him. Hi, Jimmy.
Set to 55. Let's we could open a window.
People too warm?
It's set to 55.
Oh, shut it off.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the meeting of Borough Council to order, and we'll start with pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Brunner?
Here.
Councilmember Durr?
Here.
Councilmember Mokel will be absent. Councilmember Barnett? Here. Councilmember Stango?
Here.
Councilmember Reeser?
Here.
And Council President James.
Here. Okay, before tonight, we did have an executive session to discuss some personnel issues. And with that, before we get into public comments, how many people, if you can raise your hand, are here with regards to the topic of Wyomissing Hills? If you can raise your hands, please. Okay, being at the rate, the normal progression of the meeting is that non-topic items are at the end of our meeting. Because there are so many of you, I'm going to entertain a motion that we move that portion of the non-agenda items to the beginning of the meeting this evening. And I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we're going
Mr. President, is that just for this topic?
just for this topic only,
Thank you.
okay, because there are so many of them. And having said that and passed that, is there a spokesperson or is somebody who would like to start? Okay, please identify yourself and your address.
Yes, hello council, good evening. My name is Sean Prince.
Excuse me,
Oh.
in 5 minutes.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep, timed it, good.
okay.
So my name is Sean Krentz. I live at 18 Valley Road. My fiance Jen and our 3 kids, ages 8, 11, and 12. Morning of January 30th started off like any other weekday morning. We woke up, got our kids' lunches made, sent them off to school. My fiance and her youngest walked together to school every morning to Wyomissing Hills Elementary. On this morning, after her walk back from school, along with her 1-year-old dog Charlie, on Lawndale Road, came one of the worst days of our lives. During this walk back, our dog got startled by a loud noise the roofers were making while they were working on a house. She pulled so hard on her leash, she came out of her collar, ran right to Lawndale Road on an oncoming van. Known in the area to have little disregard for speed limits, as she drove her child to school, struck her dog Charlie. She stopped and pinned her dog's paw under her tire. Fiancé, frantic, trying to pull her dog out from under the tire, then got her hand run over by this van as she sped away, showing no regard for what she just did. Now, this was witnessed by many people outside, including young children. We rushed our dog to the emergency vet. Fortunately, her injuries were too severe, including a shattered pelvis, along with extensive nerve damage, rendering her paralyzed. We had to make a terrible decision that none of us were expecting at the start of the day and put her down. We had to then pick all 3 kids up from school, give them this awful news, go to the vet to say goodbye. One of the worst things we've had to experience as a family. Now, with the help from our neighbors, we started a petition, Change for Charlie Was Born. Volunteers, we collected almost 400 signatures from this small neighborhood alone for additional safety measures to be put into place around this neighborhood, especially on Lawndale Road. This neighborhood near the elementary school and park is flooded with children and dogs. People have shown daily for years they have no regard for speed limits and stop signs, using this area as a shortcut around State Hill Road, and at times using it as their personal racetrack. And we understand additional stop signs cannot be used as a speed deterrent. However, with your help and support, we can and quite frankly need to make this area safer. Speed bumps, police presence to monitor traffic, to issue citations, speed cameras, all could be used to make the area safer. We already have the full support of State Senator Judy Schwenk, who is very familiar with the area and with this growing problem. If we do turn a blind eye and do nothing, this will happen again to another dog or, God forbid, a child. The precious few seconds and additional safety measures in place could have been the difference in this not happening to our dog. I wouldn't wish this kind of pain we've had to experience with anyone. However, this amazing community has really come together for us. Let their voices be heard, agree that change does need to happen in this neighborhood. We ask that please help us make this neighborhood safer. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Good evening, council members, neighbors, and friends. My name is Sue Erickson, and I, with my husband, live on the corner of Wingert and Lawndale at 21 Wingert Road. I've lived in my house for more than 30 years. When I moved in, I was the young kid on the block. The neighborhood was relatively quiet, the traffic was minimal, and almost everybody obeyed the traffic laws. Over the years, the demographics have changed. Younger families have moved in, and with that comes a lot of kids. There isn't a time of day when we don't see people walking their dogs, kids riding their bikes, and people my age taking their daily walks. All in all, it's a wonderful neighborhood. But there's also been a change to the volume of traffic in our neighborhood. State Hill Road, which houses everything from restaurants to Walmart to Starbucks to I don't know how many banks, can become quite congested. And as you can imagine, everybody's looking for a way to avoid that traffic, which leads us here. Drivers are using Woodland, Lawndale, and Cheltenham as the new route to avoid State Hill Road. I've seen drivers flying down Lawndale with no regard to either the posted speed limit of 25 miles an hour or, more importantly, people. In the past few months, there have been accidents. There's been a car that flipped over on its roof, near misses, and now this latest incident with Jen, Sean, and their family pet. And although that may have not been caused by the influx of traffic trying to avoid State Hill Road, it was caused by somebody with no regard for either the speed limit or the safety of people that live in the area. The number of people that walk on the road is increasing due to the sidewalk issues we have in our neighborhood, but that's a discussion for another day. I only mention it because it's a contributing factor for people walking in the street. In a perfect world, people would obey traffic laws. They'd concentrate on driving instead of concentrating on their phones. They'd always be looking ahead to avoid any possible dangers. They'd stop at stop signs and maybe even let pedestrians pass before pulling out. But it's not a perfect world. People are rushing to get their kids to school. They're rushing to get to work. And for whatever reason, everyone is in a hurry, and with that comes a very scary disregard for public safety. We're fully aware that the addition of stop signs is not an option as a speed deterrent, even though it's become more of a safety issue than a speed issue. We're also fully aware that Rome wasn't built in a day, and that whatever needs to be done is going to take time. What we hope to accomplish through all of this, The petition, the attendance at this meeting, the calls and the emails to our state senator and state representative is to have our voices heard and our concerns alleviated. The days of status quo are long gone. Just because something was designed to work 50 years ago doesn't make it right today. And if you're wondering what that means, enjoy a fun ride on the Schuylkill Expressway. I read on one of many Wyomissing Hills residents' posts surrounding this issue that installing speed bumps would ruin the borough's snowplows. I sincerely hope that I misinterpreted that, because I'd hate to think that the borough puts more value on their snowplows than it does on the residents. I'd also hate to think that anyone is hoping that this just goes away and we can get back to the way things were. It's not going to go away until something is done to ensure that careless, senseless, needless accidents stop. I don't believe we have the luxury of time to correct this issue. I believe the sooner we implement change, the safer it's going to be for all of us. Our state senator has been extremely active in looking for solutions. I'm now asking the council take an active role as well. I'd like to respectfully submit this petition with the names of nearly 400 residents to council. That's almost 400 residents in just a small portion of Wyomissing Hills that want to see a change. I believe that this proves that there is a growing concern for the safety of our neighborhood. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with all of you to create a safer Wyomissing Hills.
Thank you very much. Michelle or Melissa?
Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Mike Erickson. I also live at 21 Wingert Road. Good evening, council members, borough staff, and concerned neighbors. Every day I see and hear countless vehicles speeding up and down Lawndale, not to mention along our side streets also. By any means possible, these reckless speeders need to be stopped. It's bad enough our neighbors recently had their dog taken from them, and Jen herself was injured by a hit-and-run driver. Just imagine if that happened to one of you or your family members. Excuse me. It's only a matter of time before someone is seriously injured or killed by one of these idiot drivers. I would like to thank you for installing the electronic speed radar sign by my driveway. Although some drivers do slow down, most speed along as though it's not there, especially since it only faces one direction on a two-way street. I realize our police force has limited resources in patrolling our 4.53 square mile borough. My wife and I, along with most residents I'm sure, support and respect our police, as we know what they're up against each day. However, I must state that the 12 years I've lived here, I honestly do not recall seeing a vehicle pulled over on Lawndale Road for a moving violation. Being the most populous borough in Berks County, we've had a 653 resident increase, that's 6.25%, between 2010 and 2020 based on the latest census data. Along with more people comes the need for more law enforcement. Also, after reviewing the police department's blotter and monthly statistics section on the borough's website, I've noticed few speeding citations have been issued on the outer main roads, State Hill, Penn Avenue, the on-off ramps of 222, but no speeding citations within the borough roads, such as Woodland, Lawndale, etc., or any residential occupied street. Until a permanent solution is found to control the speeding in our streets, we respectfully demand a higher police presence in our area, handing out speeding citations to show these local and non-local speeders that their recklessness will not be tolerated any longer in our community. We're urging you, our council members, to please work closely with Senator Judy Schwenk, who is offering a variety of support in an effort to implement traffic calming measures on Lawndale Road. We will also request to be kept abreast of any progress you are making related to this matter. For this and our time, I thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishing to be heard on this topic? Okay, hearing none, there's one more. Oh, please.
Hello, my name is John Edwards. I've been living on Warwick Drive for almost all my life, and I love this neighborhood. Everyone, mostly everyone in there. In all the time, I have seen some injustice and also some careless people disrespecting in the place I love. I've seen people who are using Willerton Drive as as a pretty much a test track for their cars. I've heard people, I heard about cars doing burnouts and donuts as in the four-way intersection of Wellington. And it's just, and I've seen my fair share of people just blatantly disregarding the stop sign near my streets. And then I just, sorry. A little nervous.
It's all
That's
right.
okay, take your time.
You're doing great.
And I just want to do my part to make things safer for my neighborhood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on this topic? Okay, as everyone is aware, you know, have been made aware of this. There's been, and continues to be input from our police chief on the matter. What's going to take place now? We cannot take any official action tonight on this. You have been heard. We have heard you, and please accept our condolences. Majority of us are pet owners as well, so we don't. But having said that, this topic is going to be first and foremost at our next Fire and Police Committee meeting, which is 27th. That's Monday, the 27th at 12 o'clock noon. Okay, right here in the council chambers. We can discuss this more, have more dialogue with all of you, and you can hear what we've come up with and how, you know, we're going to address some of the issues and concerns that you have.
Bill, I do have a question.
Yes.
I assume most people are working 9 to 5, 8 to 4:30. Maybe we change that meeting to an evening meeting so that everybody can come.
Very,
Thank you, sir.
very good
That's very
point.
kind of you.
Why don't we or do we have a special one just for that topic? Then why don't we just do that, make it a special meeting.
Special one just for that topic. Okay.
So much
Okay, you wanna make
appreciated.
that a motion?
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we have a special fire and police committee meeting in the evening at some point. I can't promise when it's gonna be.
Well, you want to do it the same day, because then way we can talk about it, fire, police, and again.
Right.
So it'll be Monday, February 27th at 7 o'clock.
So are we going to have a group meeting of the fire and police committee and residents, or two
Well,
meetings?
we're just
They're
having
both
two meetings,
public
well, we
meetings.
tell them
We're
they
gonna
so
have one
choose.
the first meeting will be our normal agenda with probably this on it, but the reality of it is we'll
there
discuss
enough time to
this at
advertise
7 o'clock meeting where
24 hours.
most of these people may be able to make it.
Just curious, did your petition also have some thoughts as to, not that we can do anything exactly based on, like you find out from the stop signs, from Judy Schweig's office and so on.
Right.
Are
I
there
listened
other
to you.
suggestions in there, or things that you'd like to see?
There's
or
a
that you're
few
suggesting?
of many.
Okay.
I didn't want to take up more than one page.
No, 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 I
Cover
just-
letter, but there are several, from I heard when we were collecting the, signatures. We heard from residents ideas and suggestions, and there's many more which we can discuss at the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay, so we have a motion. We need a second on that?
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Very good suggestion.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
So again, that'll be on February the 27th at 7 o'clock. And again, anybody wishing to attend our regular meeting at noon time that day is welcome to be here. It'll be in this room also, yes.
Fantastic, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you one and all.
Are we dismissed?
So you're voting.
I'm sorry.
Feel free to go, or you can stay. whatever.
Thank you for your time, council.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
See you, Jack.
Good job.
Thank you.
No. Okay, we can continue moving ahead here. Are there any other public comments this evening?
Yes, there are on agenda items.
Yeah. Are there any other public comments dealing with the agenda?
At least me, but I think, yeah.
I'll ask one more time. Are there any public comments
Sir,
dealing with the agenda?
You have to raise your hand.
No, it's not public comment, agenda items.
No, it is
Public.
That's what it is.
So you want it on the public hearing, you want it on the hearing for the ordinance. There will be public comment specific to that section.
Okay.
They're fine to wait for the zoning ordinance amendment public comment. Mr.
Very
Jadick,
good.
do you public comment? Mr. Jadick has public comment.
Yes, so actually,
Can we close
Adrian-
the door, please?
yes. Just wanted to say a few words, again, as usual, an objection on Sunshine Act on the way this, the publication of the ordinances was handled. This seems to be an ongoing issue. It was strangely not the case during COVID, where when the governor asked for this commonsensical request to have the ordinances published on the website. So now we're doing this very strange way of putting a short form in the Reading Eagle, but then we're asking people to come to the Borough Hall to consult the text, but we're not allowing, and I know, Melissa, we solved that, but that was the case this morning, that the resident was not allowed, I was not allowed to take pictures of the pages. They were available strangely for 25 cents a page. I could have as many as I wanted, but I cannot make my own. So it's just it makes absolutely no sense. We're paying, the public is paying for a website. This is a PDF file. This should be available to everybody to consult so we can make comments, on the subject without, and again, I will remind you of the time when you were making me file a right to know request for the agenda of the meeting. This is an ongoing issue. And Mr. Hartman, I don't know, it's just, to me, it seems that these things are designed so that we create more problems. When you ask a resident to come to Borough Hall in order to consult, are you thinking of the discrimination against people with limited mobility? Or old people, or even people that have better things to do in their lives than coming here, spending whatever hours. Maybe I want to get a copy and look at it before bedtime. It doesn't matter. This should not happen. This borough has always put all the brakes possible to the public being aware of what's going on. And this is a weird way in which if somebody sues, so I don't know who makes these rules. I assume Chris Hartman, because every one of these rights to know go through Chris Hartman, so he gets more money. If somebody sues, for discrimination, he gets more money. I'm not accusing him. He's a very nice guy, but it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I don't know what's the drive behind this nonsense. Thank you.
If I may comment briefly, the procedures that the borough has been following, in my opinion, are consistent with the Sunshine Law, and the actions of the staff were based on current policies. But I do think the topic of increasing access through the website is a very reasonable request that I think could be taken up by the Finance and Administration Committee for further discussion. My understanding, however, is that we have technical limitations on how much data can be placed on the website as it exists. So, now that can be modified, but that has been an issue in the past.
We spend more time and money today
sir,
on that.
this isn't
Thank
a
you.
dialogue.
Yes. Well,
Well, I just, the point I want to make is that I believe that the internet access to ordinances that are advertised for action by council is something that I would recommend the Finance and Administration Committee consider as a change in policy going forward, if there are technical, if the technical issues can be overcome.
Put that in the agenda.
Yeah, I mean, and just to say, you know, we are exploring and have already instituted some ideas of going forward, updating our website, which is, has been in the works and continues to be so. So that issue is being addressed. Okay. Are there any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, we will move on. Okay, next item on the agenda is a public hearing with regards to liquor license transfer of 400 West Road. Excuse me, George,
Come on,
Talia?
give me another try.
Talia.
Tell ya.
Talia. Talia Greek Restaurant. And with that, I'll turn this over to Mr. Hartman.
All right, just briefly, this is the place and time designated by notice to consider the application of Restaurant 400 LLC, DBA Telia Greek for the intermunicipal transfer of restaurant liquor license number R8374, previously held in Spring Township by Penn Avenue Bar and Grill LLC and utilized at Tavern on Penn, 2601 Penn Avenue, Spring Township, to be used in the borough of Wyomissing at the property located at 400 North Park Road. And this is pursuant to the Pennsylvania Liquor Code, where a liquor license is proposed to be brought from one municipality to another municipality. Pennsylvania law provides a procedure for a public hearing to consider approval of that action by the local municipality and to evaluate if there's any potential adverse impact on the community as a result of that transfer of the liquor license. I see the applicant is here and is represented by counsel.
Yeah,
Do you
Kelsey
wish to-
Kelsey Frankowski on behalf of the applicant.
All right, and Kelsey, you had submitted the application on behalf of the applicant, is that correct?
I did.
Is there any other person present here other than the applicant who wishes to be heard in this matter tonight? I'm looking around the room and I see no indication of that. So I just want to have a couple of additional administrative things to note that there is a set of regulations in the Wyomissing Code that is based upon state law that requires certain notices to be provided in advance of a hearing of this nature. Public notice was advertised in the Reading Eagle on January 26, 2023, and February 2nd, 2023. Adjoining property owners, the applicant, were notified by mail of this hearing on January 30, 2023. The regulations require notice to the Borough Secretary, the Borough Planning Commission, the Borough Chief of Police, and the Borough Fire Marshal. All those persons received notice. This hearing is conducted pursuant to the Pennsylvania Local Agency Law. The council has 45 days from the receipt of the request to render a decision. We are within that time frame at this point. So as a matter of the record for this hearing, I intend to include the application that was received, the notice of hearing that was published, proof of the publication, the Reading Eagle, an affidavit of the notice of the mailing to the property owners and other necessary parties, and also a copy of the applicable Borough of Wyomissing regulations. Do you have any objection, Kelsey, to
No
those
objection.
being included in the record? Okay. So, I'm gonna turn it over to Kelsey now and say, what do you have, if anything, to offer on behalf of your client?
A lot of the technical information is already contained in the application, which I believe council has, so I'm not gonna waste your time going through the license number and all that stuff. I figured we could just jump into some of the operational aspects of the restaurant, because I think that's important to know what they're gonna be doing there. So I have George Zeppos here as my witness, who is a member of the applicant.
All right, Mr. Zeppos, do you agree to be sworn for this hearing?
Yes.
Yeah, you agree to, tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely, yes.
Very good. So, Mr. Zeppos, please, answer any questions your counsel has. Sure.
Where do you want me?
We can just stand,
Just
just
stand.
talk to each other.
As long as we
Stand
can
on the
hear
chair,
you.
George, you have to stand up.
I can project.
You're familiar with the application that was submitted to the borough for the intermunicipal transfer of this liquor license, correct?
Yes.
And is everything contained in that application true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, it is.
And this license is coming from the Tavern on Penn from Spring Township,
Correct.
and it's seeking to be transferred to 400 North Park Road in Wyomissing, right?
Correct.
And what used to be located at that premises?
On 400 North Park Road, that's the address of the former Friendlies, across from Willoughby's on Park.
Okay, and you are the member of another limited liability company that purchased that real estate, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you currently own it.
I own the real estate as well. I'm a member of ownership of the real estate.
And when was that purchased?
About seven months ago.
And have you been doing renovations to that premises in order to get it ready for the potential opening of a new restaurant?
Yes, we have.
What kind of renovations have you done?
A lot of cosmetic work on the outside. Interior renovations include, new flooring, paint, kitchen, plumbing, really just bringing it up to be a beautiful place.
And you've obtained all the requisite permits to be able to do that work from the
Yes, we
borough?
have.
Okay. Can you explain, and just to run back, you didn't change the footprint of
No, the
of
building
any
is still the
existing-
same.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you explain what type of operation you intend to run at
Sure.
that location?
So basically, we're focusing on doing an upscale fine dining Greek and Mediterranean restaurant. We'll be serving dinners only Monday through Saturday, starting around 4 o'clock till about 9 p.m. In alignment with the rest of our restaurant group right now.
And when are you hoping to have the restaurant open if you get approval tonight?
As soon as I get employees. We're looking to open within about 2 months after all approvals, training, licensing, probably 2 months after all approvals.
And it's, the fictitious name for the restaurant is Telia, right?
Telia, correct.
And can, just for my education and the board's information, what does that mean?
So Telia is a phrase that you use in Greek when you're out to dinner, you say everything was Telia, everything was perfect. So it's more of a compliment to the night, to the cuisine, to the atmosphere.
And you, through other legal entities, own other restaurants within the borough and elsewhere, correct?
Correct. Within the borough, we own Willoughby's on Park at 305 North Park Road, and then outside of the borough, the Hitching Post on 2747 Burnville Road up in Leesport.
And there were only about 2 minor issues with the PLCB in the past 9 years with any of your restaurants, correct?
Correct.
And you disclosed those to the borough in your application, right?
Correct.
And neither you or any members of your LLC has a criminal history record.
No, we do not.
And you're aware that the PLCB will also do their own criminal background checks as part of the application process? Okay. And you have not yet submitted the PLCB transfer application, is that correct?
That is correct.
And that's because the PLCB requires that we wait on this approval before we're able to submit.
Correct.
And Mr. Hartman, just as a point of procedure, I did request a waiver in my letter for one of the requirements in, I believe it's the borough code, that we would submit a copy of the PLCB application with this application. And I just wanted to make sure that we could cover that.
I am fine with that. Would you be willing to follow up with that and submit it at a later time when, or is there some reason why you would prefer not to?
It's not really a preference thing, it's that the PLCB went completely electronic. So it's all done online, there's no more form that you can mail in. So the information they seek is really just an exchange between the analysts, the board, and the applicant.
Okay. In my opinion, your application includes the relevant information that I believe the borough should be concerned about. So I don't believe that it would add anything to our review of this application to receive that liquor license transfer application. So it's up to the borough council, but I would be fine with waiving that requirement as a part of any action by the council.
Okay, thank you. Those are all the questions I have unless you want to add anything else, Mr. Zeppos.
I'm open for discussion from all of you, and thank you for being here, although it is the busiest night of year for me at the restaurants. Very happy to be here with all of you. I'm a little stressed out right now, but does anybody have any questions for me on
Yeah,
anything
that
with this
would be
process?
my next question. Does anyone on council or staff have any questions for Mr. Zeppos about the application?
Hearing none?
Appreciate it. I'm gonna turn to our fire chief and our police chief. Do either of you have anything you'd like to offer to council on this matter?
I do not.
Okay. If council doesn't have any other questions, I would recommend that we close the public hearing. And I have prepared a resolution for approval that is contained in the materials at your place. I would recommend a motion adopting the resolution approving the application. And I would recommend that you include in the approval motion the waiver that Attorney Frankowski has requested with regard to submission of the liquor license application to the borough.
I'll make a motion, we approve the resolution to approve the transfer and accept the waiver of not including the PLCB application.
We have a motion and a second on resolution number 2023-10. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. That one.
Opposed?
No.
Oh,
We don't need a roll call unless someone on council wishes to have a roll call.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution number 2023-10, so ordered.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
You gotta go make some food
Good luck
now.
tonight.
Get back to work. See you guys, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, next we have another public hearing for the Borough of Wyomissing zoning ordinance amendments. This would be with regards to ordinance 1430-2023. Mr. Hart.
Okay, this is the time and place which has been advertised for a public hearing regarding an ordinance to amend the borough zoning ordinance. Purpose of the amendment is to define short-term residential rental unit, to provide for short-term residential rental unit as a permitted use in the C1 neighborhood commercial zoning district of the borough, and also to permit the use as a special exception use in the R1, R1A, R2, and R3 residential zoning districts of the borough. The ordinance further provides for regulations governing short-term residential rental units. And finally, this amendment has an unrelated change to section 609, off-street parking, to add mixed-use lifestyle center to the list of uses for which specific off-street parking requirements are listed. In preparation for tonight's public hearing, the ordinance was discussed by the Borough Planning Commission. I believe it was also discussed at the Economic Development Committee here at the borough. It was reviewed by the Berks County Planning Commission. It was advertised twice in the Reading Eagle as required by the municipality's planning code. And so what is left for procedure before council could consider enacting it is to have the public hearing tonight. If at the conclusion of the public hearing, the council desires to take action on the ordinance, it would then be permissible for the borough to consider a motion to enact the ordinance which has been advertised, as all of the necessary procedures will have been satisfied. We have some individuals who are present here who have indicated by email earlier this afternoon that they wish to make some presentation to council as part of this public hearing. So I'm going to turn to those gentlemen, ask them to identify themselves and to make whatever presentation it is that they wish to make to the council.
Hi everyone, my name is James Bush. I am the Government Affairs Director for the Reading Berks Association of Realtors. And I just want to read the email that I sent out to you guys earlier today in regards to Ordinance 1432, 2022, which is related to this, obviously. The Reading Berks Association of Realtors represents over 1,300 licensed real estate professionals and many industry-affiliated businesses throughout Berks County. The association is an advocate for property owners' private property rights and works to promote and preserve fair and attainable housing throughout our communities. Our association's highest priorities are the protection of private property rights, the well-being and livelihoods of township residents, and the preservation of home and property values within the borough. Proposed Ordinance 1432, which aims to regulate short-term rentals within YMSC Borough, is currently being publicly advertised. However, to obtain a copy of this ordinance for public inspection, the borough is requiring individuals to file right-to-know requests in order to obtain copies of this ordinance, the proposed ordinance. And if an ordinance is being publicly advertised, it seems odd that we have to file an application in order to get it. This ordinance, as currently written, restricts private property rights, treats short-term rental owners unfairly, and we believe it to be unnecessary in order to achieve the borough's stated aims. If someone who owns a two-bedroom home advertises the spare room for rent on a short-term basis, would they be required to obtain permission from the borough, go through the inspection process every 2 years, and pay the required fees? Property owners who plan to be out of the country or state for a few weeks and out of the year to visit family or friends and wish to rent their property on Airbnb, would they now have to acquire permission, be subject to inspections, and pay rental permitting fees for the rental period that equate to a couple weekends out of a calendar year? If so, this seems to represent an egregious restriction of property rights. What does this legislation accomplish that the enforcement of YMSC's already existing disruptive conduct ordinance doesn't already? Regulate all disruptive conduct throughout the borough, which impugns the right of others to fully enjoy their home and neighborhood. Has the borough compiled a list of the properties that would be subject to the short-term rental provisions? If not, we encourage the borough to consider a tabling of the ordinance as written to compile a list. We also encourage the borough to consider a temporary reprieve or grandfathering of short-term rental property owners to seek official approval for their properties, complete inspections and a reduced or waived rental fee. Encourage short-term rental property owners to self-identify and abide by future common sense regulations established by the borough. The Reading Berks Association of Realtors welcomes the opportunity to work with the borough to improve the landscape of prospective short-term rental property owners and tenants while also preserving quality neighborhood enjoyment for all. Thank you.
CJ Levan, I'm the chairman of the Government Affairs Committee at the Realtors Association here in Reading Berks County. I just have a few comments to make. We've been seeing for years, overall in all municipalities, non-owner occupied property owners being restricted more heavily than others. And every time we hear about this, additional inspections every 2 years, every 3 years, and we're being told it's for health and safety issues. Some of the more recent inspections that have come out are checking the siding on the house, the pointing of the brick. They've expanded it extremely. And our concern with these continued ordinances clamping down further and further, where it's almost an entire whole house inspection every 2 years, is a little bit beyond the scope of what it should really be done for. And if it is really be done for the health and safety of the community, we're all for that. The problem I have with it is, I personally own, not in the Wyomissing Borough, it doesn't affect me in any way, shape, or form, there's no conflict in my mind, residential properties that I rent out. And I'm required in most municipalities to have my semi-detached or townhouse inspected every 2 years. But my adjoining neighbors, okay, and everything usually meets codes, it passed the first time around, I like keeping A-plus properties, AA-plus properties. But my adjoining neighbors who are owner occupied haven't had their electric system checked, any of the GFCIs put in, because they've been living there for 25 years. So how is that fair for one property owner who chooses to rent versus an owner occupied? If it's really for the safety, what's gonna happen on those properties is my neighbor's house, who has not had electrical checked or inspected in 25 years, is gonna start a fire over there and come across into my rental property when I've done everything and kept my rental property up to codes and above and beyond. And so my encouragement is to all municipalities, if you're going to, we're all about fair housing and fair property rights. If you're going to put on a landlord all these criteria, this extra above, additional layer, these are the criterias, and it's really health and safety you're concerned about in your community, why is it not done for every single home in the Wyomissing Borough or in every municipality? If that's really truly what the concern is. And that's really, and we've talked to our legal counsel at PAR, Pennsylvania Association of Realtors, and they're in agreement with that there's a discriminatory practice that's taking place across the state of Pennsylvania. It's just not the Wyomissing Borough. And we made comment to this in one of the recent breakfasts, and we believe in fair taxation, fair property rights throughout. So at the end of the day, what I'm seeing now is this is another layer on top of the rental inspection and rental requirements of a property owner that has a rental. Now we're doing it even more in depth and a different criteria. So now there's 3 levels of criteria if you're at maybe an Airbnb type situation. And the question is, where does this end? And why is one property owner being discriminated on a residential property versus another? And what we're pointing out is, if it is an issue that the police are getting calls to an Airbnb, well, at the same time, I don't know if that is the case, but if that is the situation, you already have the noise regulation ordinances to say, hey, look, we've got every right to go in and shut this down. And in my mind, I think it's already been covered in your ordinances. And that's my biggest concern, is it just keeps expanding. And this isn't coming from me or James, this is coming from our association and the government affairs, that it just keeps expanding. And where does it end? And that's our concern. At some point, we gotta say, hey, if it's really health and safety, then it should be done for every property. Every 2 years, these inspections. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this zoning ordinance amendment? Mr. Jayden, I see your hand.
Yes. Again, I am not an attorney, as you well know. I've always, thankfully, yeah. And I've always spoken from common sense. And on this issue, there's so many, first of all, I've said it before, and I did not have enough time just because of all these barriers you put against us reading this. But I have managed to look at a few things, and by my presence at other meetings. There are so many things wrong with this extra layer, like he said, on of government control. I've told you before, I lived for 30 years in an authoritarian regime. And the communists were asking residents to declare people. So your aunt comes from out of town and stays with you for 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You're supposed to declare it to the police. And the reason was safety. Now, I'm sorry, but this, I get PTSD when I hear this. Another thing that's funny to me, it says here in the definition of the short-term residential that the residential occupy of the building or structure by one family. We're in the 21st century, define family. So if it's not a family, it does not fall. If it's a bunch of kids, it does not fall into that definition of the long-term rate unit. It just doesn't make sense. And I've heard discussions about, you actually wanted to have a lockbox with the names of the people that that place has been rented. How far will you go? I mean, don't your red lights flash? Because mine do. Why, if the police or the fire chief needs to know you have used this as a reason that you need the names of the people so that they know who to save when they come if there is a fire. If I have friends over or my aunt is visiting, I'm not declaring to the borough. Don't we need to save them too? I mean, why this discrimination? Why this different standard? It just doesn't make sense. It is government intervention in the private, and this is our rights. And I told them, to the best of my understanding, you're asking these people to go through zoning, and a zoning hearing is $1,000 to get this approval. Am I wrong here? Because this is my information.
In the residentially zoned districts, that is correct. In commercial.
In R1,
districts,
yes, that's what I'm talking, because in commercial it's not required. I'm talking about the rights of residential. This is the biggest, this is a residential borough. We have that little commercial. So you're asking these people to pay $1,000 because they wanna rent over summer?
1 minute, sir.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this matter tonight? There are, I believe, at least two options for how council could proceed. One would be to consider whether the concerns that have been raised by the realtors are something that you want to discuss before considering action. And I think the gist of what I'm hearing from the realtors is that they oppose the entirety of the regulation. So the presumption would be that if you are going to favor their position, that the ordinance would not go forward. On the other hand, council could move forward with the adoption tonight of the ordinance as advertised and still invite the Realtors Association to come to, for example, the Economic Development Committee again, where this originally was discussed, and see if there are any reasonable adjustments that could be considered by the committee for recommendation. And it could be that that dialogue would result in no changes, or it could be that there might be adjustments made. But that action would presume that council continues to believe, as I believe council has up to this point, that it is appropriate to have some regulation of the short-term rentals to fill a gap in the borough's regulations of non-owner occupied residential property. The borough has, for a number of years, had regulations regarding what are term rental properties, which are the longer term rental situations greater than 30 days based on the new standard that this ordinance adopts. And in order to fill that gap and have some reasonable regulation, this ordinance fills that gap. So I don't want to belabor this too long, but I think it's up to council to decide which of these two tracks you might choose to go down. Are you persuaded by the Realtors Association that this is an unnecessary regulation that should not be enacted? In which case, I would recommend that you table the ordinance. Or on the other hand, if you believe that the concept that has led to this ordinance continues to be sound, then I would recommend that you enact the ordinance. But again, I think there is ample opportunity to invite the Realtors Association to participate in further discussions here at the borough, which, if both sides are in agreement, could lead to some adjustments in those regulations.
Are we allowed to ask them a question?
Yes, certainly.
So curiously, do you find this ordinance to be above and beyond anything else you've seen in any other boroughs, or is this non-consistent or consistent with something else you've seen?
So from our reading of the ordinance, it seems to outright ban Airbnb and short-term rentals in certain areas. In specific instances, I know Michelle mentioned while we were outside, we were talking about, let's see if I can find the specific wording. So for example, if someone who has, say like a two-bedroom home, they live in one room, and they want to rent the other one out, for example. Under this ordinance, it seems that would just be banned outright.
Well, that's not a short-term rental. So that is a boarding house. That's a different use with a different classification for zoning purposes.
Right.
A short-term rental regulated by this ordinance is a situation where the owner is not physically present, turns over total control of their property for a period of time less than 30 days. So that scenario is not what this ordinance is about.
So I know, where is boarding house defined in the zoning ordinance? Because I didn't see it when I looked at it. I know where it says that
Again, I'm not sure what the answer to your question is, but I can tell you that this ordinance that's under consideration does not regulate that situation.
But if you don't know the definition, how could you know that?
Because I know what this ordinance says.
And we provide the definition of short-term rental in this ordinance.
Can I ask you?
Yes, but not of the. But we're talking about the definition of a boarding house. You're saying that someone renting one room in a house they live in is a boarding house. But if we don't know the
But
definition of a
it's
boarding
not
house, then how do you know?
short-term rental. It's not a short-term rental. It's
How do you know?
Because
I
know
would go
what a
back to
short-term
the
rental-
definitions of dwelling units in the zoning ordinance. There's multiple, there's single family, there's multifamily, semi-detached. There's multiple definitions, and then there's group homes and boarding houses.
It might be a good idea to define boarding house in your ordinance if it's not defined, because by default, that would take you, I think, to state definition, and in the state definition, it talks about furnishing meals for a boarding house. That's my only concern. Something to investigate,
Well,
I
in
don't
any
know.
event, if the owner is occupying the residence, that's not a shortterm rental under this ordinance. That's something different.
That would be a two-family dwelling.
So I'd like to ask this question. Have you,
Well,
Chris?
have we finished this question?
Well, I don't know that I got an answer.
Yeah, I don't know what you did either. Could you repeat your question one more time?
My question is that, my question's actually two-part. Number one is, do you find this ordinance to be totally foreign to other municipalities does it go beyond and above other municipalities that have adopted similar ordinances, or do you not see them at all?
So I'm not, I think, from my perspective, I know James might have a little bit bigger handle on it. I used to do the civil site engineering, and I know Michelle Bear from years ago, and so I was very familiar with a lot of ordinances at one time. Not so much anymore, because it's been about 10 or 15 years. I have not seen a short-term rental ordinance in any other municipality in Berks County. That's why, one reason why we're here. This seems to be one of the, I could be wrong about that, and James can speak to that. If there is, I don't think there's many more of them at that point. And that's
I
our
can
one of our
just share
concerns.
my personal knowledge on that question. I would say we represent a lot of municipalities. This is the first one that's gotten to this stage of approval. However, I have multiple municipal clients who are looking for this regulation because they have the same concerns that I've heard here at the borough, that, and Mr. Jadick himself said, this is a residential community. it is primarily an owner-occupied residential community, and I think the concerns are that we wanna protect everybody in this community, and, you know, this may sound discriminatory depending on what chair you're sitting in, but, residential, renters, whether they're short-term or long-term, don't have control of the property the way that an owner does. And the safety issues that have been mentioned are legitimate safety concerns. An owner has a greater opportunity to address those upgrades over time. A renter doesn't have the same ability to modify the residence to include the safety upgrades that become appropriate over time. So I think it is a legitimate exercise of the police power of the municipality to look out for the safety of the entire community and taking into consideration the different levels of control over the residential property that a renter or an owner occupant have. So that's my point of view on why I think this is a legitimate topic for regulation.
So part two of my question for you is, are you here to say you don't think we should do anything, that this should be completely thrown out, that you see no value to it at all? Or are you saying there are certain portions of this that have some value that perhaps should be investigated and enacted, but there are certain ones that go too far? Is that, I'm trying to see which you're going for here.
So, to the second question, yes, there are portions that I think clarification in some ways would be helpful, and in others, possibly some amendments. But to answer your first question, I do have one question because it kind of hinges onto this. So if someone, for example, left for a vacation and wanted to rent their home out, say like 1 week, maybe 2 weeks out of the year, would they be subject to the permit having to get the $1,000 fee? Because if so, that seems egregious, and I just want a clarification for that.
I think the $1,000 fee is misunderstood. The $1,000 fee would be if you were applying for a special exception because you were in a residential zoning district.
Yeah. So the answer to him is yes.
But the fee, no, because the fee for the actual permit is not $1,000.
Okay, gotcha.
It would be, if you wanted to go to the zoning hearing board, the process to obtain a special exception, yes, there's a $1,000 application fee. I can explain at a future point in time why we charge that we lose money on every hearing, etc. But assuming you made it through that process, and the joke in zoning is there's nothing special about a special exception. You don't have to prove the burden of a variance hardship. So assuming the special exception were granted, it would then be the annual registration and inspection process.
Okay, so the answer is essentially, well, okay, so let's say the answer is you would have to pay the $1,000 to rent your home out for 1 week, and then pay the fee. And that just, does that not seem egregious?
If you are charging someone to stay in your house for a period of less than 30 days, and you're not physically present, you are subject to this regulation. If I am going on vacation and I have a house sitter and I'm letting them stay there for free, or I'm even paying them to watch my dog and cats, that's not a short-term rental. It's where you're getting paid to have someone stay in your house.
Yeah, like I'm saying if you're renting your home out on Airbnb while you're gone, that's simply what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's
You're
exactly.
making income, yes.
Right, so that's all the question. So the answer is yes, they would have to pay these fees. That's what I'm saying. So my answer to your question would be, like, can you ask the question one more time?
Well, that wasn't really one of my questions, but I'll be glad to answer that question.
Yeah. What was the first question? I'm sorry.
The first question was, do you find other municipalities that are enacting a similar ordinances or rules and regulations?
Sorry. Yeah. That was just a point that I wanted, or a question I wanted to ask. Then, so no.
So I would like to ask the same question, Chris, more from your perspective. This is a statewide issue, and it's coming up in municipalities all over the gelled all the significant issues that have been discussed in order to get to the part where it's.
Yeah,
could
I
be
mean,
a statewide ordinance.
the Pennsylvania Supreme Court has ruled that a short-term rental is different than residential occupancy. That it is a separate kind of land use if the municipality chooses to identify it as such. Before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court made that ruling, there were several Commonwealth Court decisions that said that short-term rentals are just residential occupancy. And so the legal landscape changed because of the Supreme Court decision. But the reason why this is a subject of concern is because of the internet and the easy access people have to information about short-term rentals. You know, and this is a modern phenomenon, and that triggers an evolution in looking at land use regulations. I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years. You know, cell towers were once a thing that we didn't know what to do with, and zoning rules evolved to deal with it. You know, in certain parts of the state, the gas exploration industry created a lot of earthquakes with regard to literally and figuratively land use regulation. You know, as time goes by, there are different topics that bubble up and become matters of community concern, and zoning regulations are developed to try to mitigate the impacts of these evolving land uses. And that's where, you know, the Airbnb is really where this came from. And in my opinion, personally, I think the borough is being proactive in trying to anticipate what could potentially be a negative impact on the community and try to have reasonable regulations put in place so that people who have a legitimate economic interest in having this land use have a path forward where they can get permits and do it and make money from it, but at the same time manage how that's going to impact their neighbors.
Just my opinion on this. Can I do that now?
Yeah.
Okay. I do think that they have some valid concerns, and I think that the fact that they are in a professional industry that has a certain skin in this game and represents 1,300 realtors, I think the process with advertising this and them only being able to come to this meeting to make their public comments without us really absorbing anything they're saying probably is not fair in that we're gonna make a decision based on that. I personally think that this is something that is necessary. I think the majority of this, however, I think there probably is some wording in here that maybe should either be tweaked or explained or maybe taken out or modified in some way. I think we should, my opinion, what my vote will be is, my vote will be to table it, pass it back over to whichever committee it came from, which I guess is economic development.
That's where it
And
started.
ask the Realtors Association to spend some time on the specific ordinance. And I'm not saying that anything's gonna change. I'm not saying that we're gonna do anything, but I'd like to hear in more depth of either the questions, the concerns, the wording, or a position of this shouldn't be allowed at all or something. I think this is gonna go forward. Something is gonna be done. I think it's a question of in what format, and I don't think that from the time that this was publicized and that they came to read it and now had a chance to talk about it and us vote on it is enough time.
What do you think of Chris's suggestion of passing it, but then we can always amend it?
What's the
I mean,
rush?
what's the
Why
sense
are
of-
we
what's
so
the
much?
sense-
Well,
You're out of order, sir.
What's the sense of urgency? I mean,
No,
I'm just
why
asking.
2 weeks versus 3 weeks versus 4 weeks? What's the sense of urgency? Is there something
There is a
immediate?
sense of urgency on the parking amendment.
Okay, let's address that separately then.
I don't know that we can since it was advertised as part of the same ordinance.
Yeah, it rises and falls.
What's the sense of urgency on the parking?
Specific to a property there's been ongoing zoning issues at.
I just think, once you put it in to go back and amend it, I think then you're just chasing it.
Chris, can we pass it and then suspend this portion of it and let the parking thing stand?
As an administrative action, yes. I mean, I wouldn't wanna let it sit in that status for any more than a brief period of time, but yes.
Until the next
I would be in favor of that.
It would actually have to wait until the March meeting because the next meeting is next Thursday and that agenda's already full. But it would be the March economic development meeting, we could then resume the discussion.
But you would enact, so
Well, we
you,
could, council could make a motion that the, short-term rental provisions which are added to the zoning ordinance will be, administratively suspended for 90 days. And we can take action, or, you know, borough can repeal it, borough can amend it, borough can let it alone.
I would just like to see them have an opportunity to come back with questions, comments beyond what would be available tonight.
So you guys, would you be willing to come back
Absolutely.
and you understand the conundrum we have as to why we would pass it and then pull it back for a maximum of 90 days, right? So does that satisfy your immediate concerns?
Yeah, we'd be absolutely open to that.
What I would suggest to come back, and you're chairman of economic development, but what I would suggest coming back with is very specific, rather than broad, I'm against it, very specific, I like this, I don't like that, I would need an explanation for this.
But at the same time, you'd expect Chris to be involved in this process in the next 60 days.
Well, until they come back to it something,
And how the development ordinance works.
there's nothing he can do with it until they come back.
So, and we can have discussions outside of the committee
We
meeting.
would appreciate that. I appreciate you guys actually giving us an opportunity to speak tonight as well. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
The only other thing I wish to, point out before we do vote on this, under clarification, is Mr. Janik's comment, and I agree with you, if in fact what you said was true, that it would be government overreach if we would have a box with names and so forth that we could access. As you know, yes, a lot of things were discussed. That is not part of this ordinance at all.
I know it's not.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
I'm not done. And the whole purpose of that, sir, is nothing but public safety, okay? As same as we do.
Communists were
Excuse me, I'm
saying the
talking.
same thing.
The
Yes.
same as we do with every commercial establishment in this borough. So I just wanted to clarify that.
So
Okay.
we need a motion to, if we're gonna go this way, to vote at least upon approving it, but then making it administrative.
Administratively suspend the short-term rental portion of the ordinance.
Only,
Yes,
and that would leave the parking requirements,
yes.
I'll make that motion.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that's for 90 days.
90 days.
For 90 days. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so enacted. Thank you, gentlemen, for your input.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you for the opportunity. Have a great day. Your water bottle?
Yeah, don't want to litter.
Okay. Okay, moving along, you've received the council minutes from the January 10th meeting. Are there any amendments to those? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Consulting engineers report, Mr. McCarthy.
Hello, everything's in my report unless you have any questions.
I think we're gonna be hearing a lot of that tonight.
Okay, Mr. Babb, do you have anything you wish to?
I have nothing to add.
Okay, entertain a motion to approve the engineer's report. Motion and second, all those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, police chiefs and mayor's report.
I have one comment before I turn it over to the chief, who I assure you will be brief. And my comment is that I have, after careful investigation, I have come to the conclusion that the Eagles got hosed. That's right. Chief, take it over.
I'm gonna say the same as Mr. McCarthy, that everything is in my report. If anybody has any questions regarding this, or if you had any questions regarding the 22 annual report and review, I'd be glad to take them. Very comprehensive, I'll say that.
Yeah, you were, that I didn't.
Yes, very well done.
That was good. I'll tell you that now.
Okay, entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Chief Hackman.
I will follow suit as well. Everything was in there for the year end and for the month of January. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. I did stand on that in the fire and police committee meeting. On the actual report.
Objection. Objection. Sunshine Act.
Objection.
These reports were not made public so that anybody can make any comments on these reports. Only you receive the reports, and that's that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, committee reports, Ms. Barnett with the library.
We're continuing to update the personnel on the employee handbook. The library in 2022 had a surplus of almost 13,000. The last meeting, we did not found any people willing to host the derby party. You might see that I expressed some concern about the extent to which the library was getting back to pre-COVID levels. For example, in 2022, material circulation was 2/3 of what it was in 2019. And the number of people going to the library is 58% of what it was in 2019. Peer users was 37% of what it was in 2019. Internet users was 61% of what it was in 2019. The significant increase were in Overdrive ebooks, which was almost 3 times as much, and in Bookflow, which was 1.5 times as much. When I raised that concern with the librarian and the library board, no one had concerns and no one had any plans for getting back to pre-COVID levels.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Personnel committee, Mr. Brunner.
Personnel committee met on January 17th. It's a pretty straightforward meeting. The only thing we have to bring in front of council is the committee is recommending a motion to accept the retirement notice of Officer Henny. And I would say probably with regret, but happy for him, and I'll make that recommendation.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. And, anything else?
That's all we have to discuss
Okay.
today.
Entertain a motion to accept the personnel committee report.
Second.
Motion second, favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Infrastructure, Mr. Brunner.
Infrastructure Committee also met on January 17th. We did discuss some things. We found out that the thing that's really driving me crazy is the water line underneath Warren Street bypass, is that right? That one, that street? We've been promised that if we have to, they'll attach a hose from one side to the other if there's an issue. No? That's fine, that's crazy. Said it work. Right. So we have at least something. It does make me nervous though to make sure we have a backup for that when they do go down and if we have any issues down in that part of the borough. That all being said, for council's purposes, under sanitary sewer, the committee has made a recommendation to authorize payment of application number 5 in the amount of $14,726.47 to Specialty Sewer Services. Jim, is there any reason we shouldn't, anything's changed since then?
No, this is the final release of retainage to close out the contract.
And I'll make that recommendation.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second, roll call please.
Councilmember Brenner?
Yes.
Councilmember Durr?
Yes.
Councilmember Barnett?
Yes.
Councilmember Stenko?
Yes.
Councilmember Reeser?
Yes.
And Council President James?
Yes.
Okay, the other thing for the council tonight is on the pump station for Berkshire Boulevard. The committee is recommending council to accept the lowest bid of $736,159 from PSI Pumping Solutions for the Berkshire Boulevard pump station. And unless anything has changed, Jim, I'll make that recommendation.
Nope.
Okay.
So moved.
I'm looking for the budget.
Budget was $750.
750.
780
I'm sorry, I
with
should have
engineering.
included that. They're both under budget.
Ready?
780 with
Okay, roll call.
Councilmember Brenner?
Yes.
Councilmember Durr?
Yes.
Councilmember Barnett?
Yes.
Councilmember Stenko?
Yes.
Councilmember Reeser?
Yes.
Council President James?
Yes.
That's all we have for the meeting, for council for approvals. I did hear earlier tonight comment about the sidewalks. I think maybe we need to re-advertise or we talk about the 50/50 sidewalk return to people. But that's all I have.
I would like to see that happen again. Okay.
If we can.
It's
Okay,
on-
we're not
it-
doing it.
No, we're doing
Yeah,
it.
we're
The
doing it.
information's on the website.
Yeah, it's gonna be in the newsletter.
Right.
And it's on the website.
Maybe we'll let those people know at that meeting that if they're interested about getting their sidewalks better, they can do it that way.
And Colin, when I heard about connecting the hose also, I said, that's nuts. You know, I don't know what they're smoking, but that ain't gonna happen or work. Okay. Alrighty, entertain a motion to approve the infrastructure committee report.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Okay, recreation board, Ms. Barnett.
We have a meeting next week. We'll be filling 3 vacancies, so 3 new people attended the meeting and submitted applications and we're good. Keith is hiring people for the summer. We have accepted the borough manager's suggestion that the theme for the Fourth of July be Rockets Red Glare. To go along with
That was not my suggestion.
You came up with it, I heard you.
Did not. That was last year.
I thought you, oh, well, whatever. Somebody's suggestion, Rockets Red Glare. And Pete is not here tonight. He told me he would text me the score of the Legacy girls basketball game, but I have nothing to report at present.
At 7:30.
That's the idea.
Yeah,
I did have one question on that, is that I understand, and I can just find it. Chef, David, is going to be,
Instead of losing our shirts and snack bar.
right, he's gonna oversee the snack bar.
And he's gonna staff the snack bar.
He's going to
Instead of
snack.
having people who do nothing but eat and play in the parking lot.
Okay. Does he oversee that?
He's going to run the whole operation.
Oh, okay, that's what I'm getting at,
Provides
so.
the staff, it's his operation.
I'm getting the liabilities, what I was getting. Outsourced,
We have a
okay.
contract with him with which the solicitor
Great.
approved.
That's what I was driving at. Okay, wonderful. Anything else?
That's it, if there be a motion to approve.
Entertain a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Mr. Reeser?
Refuse and Recycling Committee, I have no comments regarding the report. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Are there any comments regarding the Refuge and Recycling Committee report?
The only comment would be at the end of the meeting with what Mary Ann was proposing and suggesting. I just think that got moved ahead beyond where the committee was discussing.
October sheets instead.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of got, I think it moved along too quickly without council being involved in it anyway. And I just think that had to be reined back.
Yeah, you mean as far as writing a letter to
Yeah.
various, yes. I had the same feeling, I was at the meetings.
When we left the meeting, the comment was Eric was gonna contact Brian Redner
Right,
and have just a dialogue, see if he wanted to come to a meeting, or if he just wanna have some dialogue, just to bounce the idea off him, and all of a sudden, we're writing letters and we're
Oh, yeah,
buying
drafts,
signs and all
second,
that.
third draft and everything.
Well,
else.
I put a kibosh to the first draft, and I squelched the second draft, and I said, nothing is going to be sent out from this government, anything until it's so approved, so.
Okay.
Kind of told her to cool her jets a little
I
bit.
commend her enthusiasm,
Yeah.
but
There's a process.
yeah.
So,
Okay, good point.
okay, anything else, Dave?
That's it?
Okay, motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Mayor, Economic Development.
The committee met January 26th. There are two recommendations, unless anyone has any questions. The first is that we recommend council grant conditional use approval during the conditional use hearing related to building height and paved coverage for 521 Van Reed Road. That will be held on, is it the 22nd?
Yes, at 11 a.m.
At 11 a.m. So the Economic Development Committee considered the proposal for the property, and we think it's a good one, and urge council to approve it. And I would ask a member of council to make such a motion.
Well,
And you
since
don't-
council is gonna hear the conditional use hearing, yeah, I think, council has heard the committee's recommendation, and we can actually bring that up during the hearing next week that the committee recommended it.
Okay.
So that would be the time to have council take that into consideration.
All right, the second recommendation is basically simpler, I guess. That we're recommending to the zoning hearing board that they grant a variance to allow wall-mounted and blade signs to be installed for each of the individual tenants at the Wyomissing Square retail section known as the block. Do I need to ask somebody to make such a
Well, do we have any precedent for that coming directly from the committee, or is there any way to get that to the zoning hearing board?
So it becomes part of the memo that I issued to the board. I mean, I haven't even gotten an application for this yet, so there's no documents to
So,
send to the board at this point in
Once we have
time.
the application, I would say, will that come through, any of the committees, planning commission, nobody?
No, I mean, typically my memo goes directly to the board and it simply summarizes the application and the relief requested, but in a case like this where council supports or if the economic development committee supports the relief being granted, a statement will be included basically at the January, whatever date, meeting of the economic development committee. This project was discussed at length. Can it
Do you know when it's gonna come in? Is it gonna be, you know? Alright, cause, I mean, my thought is, I would prefer if council is gonna make a recommendation to the zoning hearing board, it be based on an actual application rather than speculation about an application, which I think is totally fine for the committee, but for council, I'd rather there be an actual application. So,
My understanding is the sign package, I mean, I've already looked at the sign package, so it's gonna be identical to what was presented to the Economic Development Committee at that January meeting.
So if you know what's gonna be in the application, and it's not gonna change, then I would be okay, if council wanted to amend the agenda in order to take up the subject of making a recommendation to the ZHB on this application, because council thinks it's that important, that's an option, but it's up to council whether you wanna take that step.
Well, I have no clue what the zoning hearing board may think of it, but economic development certainly concurs with the developer that having the sort of signage that you're proposing is critical to making the project successfully. We waited this long for the retail section of that overall development. Let's get it right.
Yeah. So,
Well, except, does anybody on council want to make a motion to amend the agenda to take up this topic?
Well, I mean, if the economic development looked at it and they like it, and zoning looked at it and they like it.
Zoning has not
Well,
looked
then
at
they
it.
should both take a look at it real fast and we can just say yes.
All this was that said zoning hearing board that the council either likes the idea or doesn't like it. That's not what I'm doing that.
I'll make that motion.
No. To agenda, to amend the agenda.
To amend the agenda.
Not to turn it over.
No,
there's a second to amend the agenda. Okay, is there any public comment in regards to this signage issue?
We don't know
Hearing
what this
none.
is about.
It's about the signage.
About the signage.
Good.
I just got through saying that.
Excellent.
Signage at the Berkshire Square.
Can't
Why
transfer
missing
this
square?
disease at the same
Missing
time.
square.
I think it needs more
Okay, hearing
information.
none, no public comment. I'll entertain a motion to
To amend the agenda, we didn't have a motion, we didn't approve that motion.
No, we did not.
Oh, I thought,
We have a motion and a second.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, now,
I'll make a motion that the council send a letter to the zoning hearing board stating our approval or the thoughts of the council for those signage at Berkshire's
Why missing square?
Missing Square.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Unless there are any questions, that would be the balance of the report.
Okay.
Motion to approve the report.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, Fire and Police Committee met on January 30. Under the Fire Department report, total responses for the month were 1,125 within the boroughs. Average turnout time was 1 minute and 57 seconds, very good time, way below NFPA standards. There was a total fire loss in the borough of $97,650. As a result of, what was that, Colin? Do you know?
What's the question, how much property loss?
Yes.
I don't know to how many fires that was, I don't have that broken down, but it was $97,650
For the year?
loss. Yep,
Oh.
for the year, and saved property for the year was $823,800.
All right, there were 551 fire safety inspections, with 45 smoke detector installations and 38 carbon monoxide detector installations. Chief Hackman had reviewed a proposed ordinance for updating the borough's use of the International Fire Code 2015 to the 2018 Fire Code standards. And the committee is recommending that we approve ordinance number 1433-2023, an ordinance of the Borough of Wyomissing, Berks County, Pennsylvania, repealing, readopting, restating, and amending the code of the Borough of Wyomissing, Chapter 7, entitled Fire Prevention and Fire Protection, Part B, entitled Fire Prevention Code, and renumbering the sections of Part 4, entitled Fire Department Service Fee, by adoption of the 2018 International Fire Code and Fire Prevention Code for the Borough of Wyomissing. And I will make that motion.
This would be a motion to advertise.
Advertise it, I'm sorry, yes.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, under Western Berks Ambulance, it was reported there were a total of 256 calls for service
that Western Berks responded to. Mr. Tucci also shared that COVID seems to be higher among pediatric patients at this point, as various strains continue to emerge. Under the police department report, again, a credit to Chief Phillips for a very in-depth and thorough annual report. Okay, Chief Phillips also requested, or a residential request to have a handicap sign removed from 801 Holland Square due to the original requester no longer living in that residence. And I will make that motion. Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Sign can be removed. Okay, Chief also brought up the Family Guidance Center to host the Minor Health 5K event May 20 of 2023. Are all paperwork done and so forth on that? Okay, great. And committee approves, and I'll go ahead and make that motion.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Chief Phillips also discussed the Wyomissing School District would like to purchase a used police vehicle from the police department, and based on recent sale price, he believes that the available vehicle with lighting package is worth $11,000. And the committee is recommending the council approve that sale, and I will make that motion. Motion and second, all those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. We don't need a roll call on that,
We are a roll call. Yeah.
right? Okay.
Councilmember Brenner?
Yes.
Councilmember Durr?
Yes.
Councilmember Barnett?
Yes.
Councilmember Stanko?
Yes.
Councilmember Reeser?
Yes.
And Council President Jennings.
Yes. Okay. Alrighty, interesting enough, this was just in the newspaper. I read that. Okay, Chief Phillips had indicated the Wilson School District approached him with regards to a potential intergovernmental agreement related to the enforcement of vehicles failing to stop for school buses with flashing red lights as per the Pennsylvania Vehicle Code. As part of that code is a civil process where a fine would be associated with the violation. However, the owner of the vehicle is able to countersue the police department and then go to the district court for it to be tried. It is the recommendation of the committee that we deny this request by the Wilson School District, and I will make said motion.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The recommendation is denied. Okay, and lastly, under Westside Regional Emergency Management, myself along with Michelle Baer will serve as the representatives and alternate for the Borough of Wyomissing on the Emergency Management Agency Committee. Oh, okay, I just looked at, motion to approve.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So be it. The Planning Commission, Mr. Stanko.
Sweet. Okay, Planning Commission, 1101 Woodland Road. We're talking about conditional final plan approval, which was previously granted. Actually, Janet agreed, made a motion, seconded by Rick, to table any actions that are required at this time. So we're asking council to agree with that concept going forward. Make that motion.
You don't need any action on that. The planning commission tabled it, so there's nothing for council to approve.
All right, so why is it in here?
Because the planning commission tabled it.
Yeah,
It's not in the
the
minutes.
item on the agenda is the next
It's not in
item.
the agenda.
So 1011 North Park Road, waiver of land development. Land development requirements were changed with regard to adding one floor to the plan, which would add 16 additional apartments and various compliance parking would still be met. The consultants confirmed that previously granted waiver from land development was consistent. Motion was made and seconded by Scott to approve the reaffirmation of the land development process going forward. Make that motion.
Reaffirm the waiver.
Yeah.
Second.
Motion second to reaffirm the waiver. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.
All right, the last item is a little more complicated. It's 301 Windsor Street. The commission, there's a proposal for 6 townhouses. There's stormwater management issues that are still outstanding. Final approval couldn't be granted this time. Stormwater issues and sanitary issues, which are being addressed by McCarthy. Previous discussions regarding sidewalks, because that particular area has no sidewalks on one side, and sidewalks are being discussed. We added to this side, taking that into consideration, along with the possible fee in lieu of. The issue of sidewalks is still very much alive. That's being deferred to later discussions. Sidewalks don't exist on this side, there may be sidewalks on the other side, so until we figure out whether we actually move with sidewalks on both sides for increased pedestrian access in the future, we're gonna allow that to sit for a while. Developer wouldn't have a significant amount of sidewalks to install in either case on that side. There's another area of concern, which was related to the fire marshal regarding fire hydrants in front of the proposed property. There's concern, because of fire hydrants on one side and the other side, that this would be a problem because it's a dead-end street. We deferred the engineer back to the fire department to talk to them about whether they wanted to stretch the hose across the street or not, or having fire hoses damaged in the process. So that matters under discussion. The commission also questioned the current barricades at the end of the street for accessibility regarding units, unit 6 across the way. And all that being said, requested waiver of 305 of the subdivision land development ordinance was requested to be allowed to be reviewed as a preliminary final plan, which was indicated not uncommon waiver of this request. So we're asking that waiver to be moved forward until we can get all these other matters removed.
One-step review process rather than a two-step process.
You're making a motion?
I am.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Just one clarification, Melissa, if you could, on H subsection 2, identify that property as 1011 North Park
Yeah.
on the agenda, and on H subsection 3, 301 Windsor Street.
Yeah. Did I say that?
No, I'm talking to
Oh, okay.
Melissa. Okay, entertain a motion to approve the planning commission report.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor? Opposed? Have it, very good, thank you. Finance and Administration Committee, Mr. Durr.
Finance and Administration Committee met on February 9th. Phyllis reviewed the income and expenditures. Only having January, there's very little income coming in, taxes aren't coming in yet. Although she did report from the tax collector that 98.5 of the collections have been made for 2022, which is in line with past year. The rest is being turned over to the county for collection. So there's been very little expenditure. Jim hasn't really got out there to start spending money yet. So income's where we anticipated. It might be a little lower in the tax side so far, but it's starting out slow, but expenditures are in line with budget as well as the time of year. Phyllis did report cash of $10,498,000, of which $1.68 million is reserved, leaving us an unreserved balance of $8.8 million. The good news is this Pliget thing, when we budgeted in last fall, interest rates were next to nothing. And we had only budgeted between $25,000 and $30,000 for the year. We've already collected over $25,000 in interest. It's the committee's feeling and recommendation that we kind of take the $8 million that we currently have with Pliget, which is the Pennsylvania Local Government Investment Trust, and spread out those CDs as much as we can to capitalize on the interest rates, not knowing how long it's going to last. We've got $2 million that's coming due in the 14th today, and of that $2 million, and it was a short term, we got $22,000 worth of interest. So we're already close to $50,000 worth of interest for this year. We're going to take that $8 million and continue to try to capitalize on that. Looks like we're trying to get $1 million to renew every month in case she needs the cash. So the committee's recommending that they invest it in July and November at 4.85 and 4.98%, which is far better than we ever anticipated. The one thing you do have to look into at some point in time, I was trying to do some research and I got sidetracked, but I kept trying to find out what Pliget's doing with this money. So they are issuing low interest loans also to municipalities. And it's something that we, at some point, if we ever get further down the road with some of these large projects, we may want to. It was complicated the way they describe it on their website, and it keeps directing you to some other website from Pennsylvania government something or other. So I'm not really sure how it all works.
I'm not aware of any municipalities borrowing from Pliget, but maybe they are tied into something, I don't know.
It's tied into, because it keeps referring you back to some other government agency, but they've got to be doing, something with the money. They've got to be doing something with it, and if there's an opportunity for us for low interest at some point in time versus a bank, I think we want to capitalize on it. The only other thing Phyllis did,
Was it Penvest by any chance?
I think it was.
Yeah.
That's what it
so-
was.
We are in the process of, the water authority is in the process, because we're gonna have a lot of repair, replacement, what have you, because of the age of the back of the plant. We are very strongly looking at doing Penvest loan borrowing versus the banks.
That's what it looked like, because it looked like
Yes.
it kept referring me to there, so as if Pliget is loaning Penvest the money somehow, and then they're investing it. But I saw it for like the water authorities,
Yes.
but I didn't see it for actual, like, putting a building up or something. I
Well,
couldn't find that, but
The problem is, before you ask for, when you go ask for the money, you have to have your plans, engineering reports, all the data there, and say, this is what I wanna do. And can I have $10 million?
right.
Well, it's gonna take us 2 years to prepare to do that. Yeah, but yes,
Yeah.
that's what they're,
So
that's what they're
anyway,
doing.
it's something that down the road we may look at. This did generously increase our cash accounts to 2.75%, I think. A lot better than what it was at 0.00 something, but not near as good as we're getting with Pliget. So I don't remember if we needed to have a motion to approve that investment, or if the committee was just doing it.
She already did it today, because her and I were actually going over the agenda yesterday, and the committee didn't.
Is there anything in the minutes about ratifying that? I think that we might have talked about ratifying here at council. Is there any?
It doesn't say that.
At
I
a
don't know.
prior finance meeting where you approved moving the first 2 million, it was in the minutes and you did make a motion. Phyllis and I spoke yesterday that, in reviewing these minutes, the agenda for tonight, it was not something that a motion was made by the committee that council would be approving, so she was just running past me, is it okay to transfer the funds tomorrow? I said, yes, I didn't do it. So, I mean, you could always ratify it, but she has done it.
Okay, so if we don't
You
have.
could always reaffirm what she's done.
I would, I'm always thinking about what's an auditor gonna look
Yeah.
for, so I would prefer if we had something in the minutes.
So it's a recommendation of the
Amend the
finance.
agenda.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to talk about what you're about to talk about.
Second.
changing investments.
Is there any public comment? Hearing none? Go ahead.
So it's a recommendation of the.
Oh, that- Oh, yeah, motion to amend.
Aye.
All those in favor?
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
I need a second.
No, we had a second. We're good there.
It's the recommendation of the Finance Administration Committee to have Phyllis take the $2 million that's coming due today and move it to $1 million in July at the stated Pliget rate of 4.85 and the stated rate of November of 4.98. I'll make that one.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You want that? Okay.
There was a request came to the Finance Administration Committee for a adjustment on a water bill at 1320 Cleveland Avenue. They wrote a nice letter. The letter indicated they had a toilet running while they were on vacation. And although the committee has always been sympathetic to that sort of thing, based on past precedent and the fact that we just don't do it. We have to hold the line because the borough paid for the water. And because it went through the sewer as well, it's the recommendation of the Finance Administration Committee to deny that request. And I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The request is denied.
There's a recommendation to council to advertise the resolution number 2023-08.
We don't need to advertise this.
We don't.
It's a resolution, you can just adopt.
Okay, it's a recommendation of the Finance Administration Committee to adopt the resolution number 2023-08, which changes and brings in line, as requested by Wilson School District and Wyomissing School District, to amend the way the privilege and mercantile tax regulations are stated in our ordinances.
We're mixing a little bit.
All right.
The resolution that is at this point in the agenda adopts revised Wilson School District and Wyomissing Area School District tax regulations. Those regulations are very voluminous in the details about how to calculate liability. And there are some revisions that have been requested regarding the penalties and interest and various collection procedures. So this resolution just adopts for the borough the regulations of the Wilson School District as to the Wilson School District portion of the borough and the Wyomissing Area School District regulations as to the Wyomissing Area School District portion of the borough.
And I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Motion is recommendation of the Finance Administration Committee to council to increase the hourly wages of part-time accounting person from $22.28 to $25 per hour effective February 14th, 2023, and I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
All right, Chris, you want to start? You want to take this one too? Since I'm just going to repeat what I say.
This is a companion to the resolution adopting the regulations, but this is an ordinance which will amend the business privilege tax regulations in the Wyomissing Code and the mercantile tax provisions in the Wyomissing Code, not changing the rate, not changing the basis of the tax, but only making some revisions to the penalty provisions, interest provisions, and other collection procedures to match up what's in the Wyomissing Code ordinance with what's in those school district regulations. And this has been advertised, so it is permissible for council to consider a motion to enact the ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ordinance number 1431-2023 is enacted.
And that's it.
Defer
Anything else? Alrighty, make a motion, or entertain a motion to accept the, Finance Administration Committee
So
report.
moved.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. Borough Manager report, Ms. Bear.
Good evening, I apologize in advance, I feel like my report gets longer every month. The minutes from the Western Berks Water Authority Board meeting have not been received, we will send those out as soon as we get them. The minutes from the November and December Joint Municipal Authority Board meeting are in your packet for review. Follow-up to a comment from a prior meeting, a 2002 Crown Victoria was sold on municipal for $2,000 to a Christopher Boggs in Canton, Pennsylvania. I'm respectfully requesting a motion to approve a one-year extension to the emergency repair contract between Spring Township, Schlepp Incorporated, and the borough.
So moved.
Motion and second, all those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.
I'm also respectfully requesting a motion to approve authorizing the hiring of Gregory Capriola as the Assistant Public Works Director at a starting salary of $75,000.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.
I'm respectfully requesting a motion to approve submitting a 6-month extension request to the Office of the Budget regarding the Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program and the submission of the application and business plan related to the grant award of $2 million, and that is for the Public Works Garage project.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
I'm respectfully requesting a motion to approve adopting resolution number 2023-09, a resolution of the Council of the Borough of Wyomissing, Berks County, Pennsylvania, in recognition of the dedication and contributions of Natalie Loeb to the Borough of Wyomissing. And that's for her contribution on the Recreation Board.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all those in favor? Opposed? Resolution number 2023-09 is approved.
I'm respectfully requesting a motion to approve adopting ordinance number 1432-2023 related to the housing ordinance and ordinance of the Borough of Wyomissing, Berks County, Pennsylvania, to amend the Code of Ordinances of the Borough of Wyomissing, Chapter 11, entitled Housing, to amend Part 2, entitled Rental Property Maintenance, by amending, do I have to keep reading first?
No, I think that's sufficient, but this is a companion ordinance to the zoning amendment. And in order to keep these two tied together the way I think they need to be, I would recommend that you consider the same action on this that you did with the zoning amendment, so that we can review both regulations with the Realtors Association.
Does any of this ordinance need to be enacted to help your other zoning issue? Okay, then I'll make that motion. So we adopt it, but not administratively enforce it for a 90-day period until it's to be reviewed.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Ordinance number 1432-2023 has been approved.
A motion is respectfully requested to approve reappointing Arthur Waite to the Wyomissing Valley Joint Municipal Authority Board for a 5-year term. He was previously appointed at the January meeting for a 4-year term. Apparently all of their terms are 5 years, so to keep it concurrent with everyone else, the JMA requested we revise and reapprove for a 5-year term.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it.
And a friendly reminder, Borough Hall will be closed next Monday, February 20th, in observance of President's Day, and I will be out of the country beginning tomorrow morning until late Sunday evening.
Arriba.
Yes.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to accept the Borough Manager's report. All those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Okay, before you is the Treasurer's Statement of Operation, including the General Fund, Bureau of Water, Sewer Fund, Highway Aid, Refuge Recycling Fund, the Road Tax Fund. And I'll entertain a motion to accept the Treasurer's Statement of Operations.
Second.
Motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Also in your packet is the accounts payable, the general fund, Bureau of Water, Sewer Fund, Refuge Recycling Fund. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brenner?
Yes.
Councilmember Durr?
Yes.
Councilmember Barnett? Yes. Councilmember Stenko? Sorry, he left. Councilmember Reeser?
Yes.
And Council President James.
Yes. Okay, you also have the tax collector's report. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion second, all those in favor? Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, is there any old business to be brought before council this evening? Hearing none, moving on to any new business to be brought before council. Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to public comment on non-agenda items.
Just a couple of answers. Chris, you always give me the same answer that the way you do it, it follows the Sunshine Act. And I think you go to bed with that book and say, how can I do this, minimally so that I can get away with it? And how can I frustrate any other effort to, have a commonsensical approach to ordinances? I mean, we really don't know anything. Nobody can comment on anything. So, but in any case, and to you, Council President, on the box, on the lockbox, the problem is not that it's not in the thing. The problem is that it took an hour of debate to take it out. And all I could say is...
So what?
No, it's not so what. The problem is, why was it there in the first place? What sort of person thinks like that? That's my point.
It was an item that was discussed as that thing was being produced. It
Yes.
is not in the final one
Yes.
that was voted on.
Yes. The problem is what my comment was, why was it there in the first place? Why would you feel the need?
It wasn't there in the first place.
Okay, it's my time. May I please finish, because then you're gonna tell me that I'm out of time, right?
About ready to.
No, it's not. It's 1:43. So the problem is government intervention in the private lives of citizens. That's what the problem is, and it's a fundamental issue. And those residents are not normally asked to give a list of people who live in their house, and it's not your business to ask that, because a form of that box is still in the ordinance. Now, I've answered these two questions. And again, one thing that I actually wanted to say, and I have enough time, our lovely neighbors who clearly don't like their immigrant neighbors are continuously inventing ways to harass and find. So Mr. Cullen now is bringing his dogs at 4:30 in the morning to the back of the wall, let them bark at our bedroom window. 4:30 in the morning. On the funny side, if those dogs need walking at 4:30 in the morning, he got a bad deal. So, but our chief, when I tell our chief that, he wants me to call the cops while this is happening. A video of the act is not enough for him. I wonder if he does the same thing with burglaries. He wants to witness the burglary before he can do something about it. So I don't know how this works. And plus, the borough code asks for dogs to bark 10 minutes, and I didn't hear your report today. I don't know, but I want to bet that your average response is over 10 minutes. So I don't know how that works, but it's part of the fun we have to have in this borough, because it seems that this never ends. We don't want to see the racism. We don't want to see the xenophobia. We want, and all of this is, those people have the right to do what they do. Okay? I've said it before, hate is not freedom of speech. But I guess it'll be a long time until I get my message across here. Thank you so much.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Are we done?
Yeah.
Thank you.